I literally work every single day. The moment I wake up, the moment I sleep. Sometimes I fall asleep on my laptop. If you have to ask yourself, I want to find a startup idea, don't do it. You shouldn't have to find a startup idea. You should just, hey, this is a problem. You feel that emotion, like, I want to solve it. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how difficult it is. I'm going to figure it out. And that's how you know if you want to start a company or not.
Welcome back to the Skyline Hour. I'm your host, Anthony.
And I'm your host, Michael.
Today, we're joined by William, the founder of Touchdown Labs, an AI startup. One of the reasons we wanted to have William on is because of his really unconventional path into tech. So he wasn't someone who just followed the stereotypical Silicon Valley playbook. There were setbacks and a lot of self-teaching and even a few moments where things could have just gone completely in a different direction. But fast forward today, William's building in one of the most important areas of AI, which is inference infrastructure. So we're excited to talk about his life journey and what he's seeing in the AI world and where he thinks everything is headed. So William, thank you so much for joining. Just to start off, so you have a really unique life story. Could you just tell us about how your experience was growing up in the Bay Area?
Hi, Anthony. Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm William. Um, yeah, if you guys don't know, I grew up to high school with Anthony and very Silicon Valley. Everyone's like, hey, I gotta go Stanford, MIT, gotta be a software engineer, do all this. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. But I think that environment made you want to like build more, go for more. I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what. But at the time, high school, STEM wasn't really my thing. I was more into A push, history, things like that. I remember like things just came natural to me. I was more curious for that. So actually, I was going down the political science track. But high school, you didn't really know what you wanted to do, trying to try things out. So that's something I kind of wanted to move towards. Maybe some entrepreneurship, economics, some type of fusion between that. Uh, the end goal was I really wanted to change the world, impact the world positively. I just didn't know what. So, but then fast forward, being around tech, everyone's being a software engineer this, Airbnb that, Uber, Facebook, Google, dropping this. I was like, wow, that's like really cool, but it sounds really, really hard. Because there's something called leak code, there's algorithms, there's coding, I've learned math. And that was just really daunting towards me because I think this is before AI, like just learning any type of STEM topic, you really had to follow along. And especially in like a traditional school setting, that's where I really struggled. Where let's just say you have one semester of algebra, and day one, you're expected to kind of read the textbook of that chapter, ask questions during lecture, do the homework. But if you kind of miss like one concept or one day, you have to catch up. And at best, you have Google. At best, you have a tutor. You have to pay, take more time. For whatever reason, it was just really hard for me to understand. It was really a struggle to trying to keep up in terms of like traditional school. And fast forward to now, with AI, I use ChatGPT, Cloud Code, Codex. All of a sudden now I can doing engineering physics for I'm doing material science research for next semiconductor, sub-nanometer, KV cache research. So it's kind of crazy how if you have the right tools, the right mindset, you stack everything together, you can have significantly different outputs depending on your specific style. And I think that's what made me realize like, hey, I think AI is really good as an instrument that adapts to however your learning style is. I know kind of going into AI, but backtrack into like traditional schooling, especially in high school. I think Anthony would know, like in geometry class, I would actually struggle. I would ask Anthony, like, hey, like, how do you do this? How do you solve this? He would walk me through it. And I just, for whatever reason, it didn't click in my head. And I think in traditional schooling, you're usually taught the basic concept and then you're tested on everything. But if you look at real life, how does real life test you? You just test it, you're expected to get an A plus, and then you figure out and learn the basics and fundamentals. That's how life is. And I figured, wait, why doesn't school teach you that?
That's a really awesome background to hear about starting off in the Bay Area. And could you tell us about how after that you went to college down in LA, and how was that experience compared to the really cutthroat Bay Area environment that we all grew up in?
I think when you grow up in the Bay Area, you're just used to the competitiveness and the ability to strive for more. Once you go outside and go to another part of the country or another school, then you kind of get a feel for, and at least in SoCal. Uh, Actually, even within SoCal, I feel like it depends on where you go, but it could be more lax, it could be more competitive, or it could be um, kind of on the same parity. And then within that, your school it depends on your actual major. So I entered actually with a political science major. So nothing really STEM related, but again, I was just trying to like really figure out what I was really trying to do. I didn't really know. Um, I actually even almost joined the United States Marine Corps. So that's another path I was trying to explore, but I'm flat-footed, so it's kind of difficult. But I knew I really wanted to create a positive impact somehow, build something, impact something. And fast forward today, that's what I'm doing right now. But it was a very long journey, a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes. But yeah, I'd say the environment really depends on your school and within that your major. And in SoCal is a little bit more self-discovery. It give you more freedom. There's a lot more. It give you the ability to kind of figure out who you are, what you want, and then when you're able to figure that out, then you can lock in and really focus on exactly what you want to do because you know exactly what you need to do and what you want to move towards.
So this is very interesting. You mentioned the Bay Area, like growing in high school, it's very competitive. And then you're saying in college, what is the difference for our viewers between, going to one of the top high schools in Silicon Valley and then going to UCLA, right, for undergrad, which is also like one of the top like public schools. Does the level of competitiveness remain, or is it like different, like areas of competitiveness?
Yeah. So to give more context, uh, right after high school, went to UC Riverside, and then that's for political science. And then also went to UCLA Extension for data science, finished that. And then also went to CSULA for computer science. I want to get a master's and PhD.
Mhm.
That's more long term.
Wow,
I can go into more detail after the company stuff, but
please.
that was on pause. And for more context on that, I was also working as a full-time software engineer while pursuing my degree in computer science, also doing data science. So there's a lot of things in parallel, more context. But to back to your question, how does a competitive high school such as Saratoga High compare to maybe like a top school or a UC school in Southern California? I think it really boils down to what major you're truly trying to move towards. I think in high school, you kind of just everyone's in the same bubble a little bit. You're not really deciding what you want. Everyone's kind of socializing, figuring things out. But I think once you hit to college, you're kind of confined and constrained to really figure things out. Hey, I want to major in computer science. I want to major in econ. I want to major in finance, whatever it may be. And then within that, you kind of get used to your classmates. You form a bonds because you're going through hours. You're studying for tests. You're peer reviewing essays, whatever it may be, doing assignments, and you feel and form that bond. And I'd say again, I think it's pretty relative. Uh, the experience may be different from Stanford or UC Berkeley, where from what I've heard, even more competitive, pretty much on parity with like any type of top Bay Area high school. So at least in my experience, it wasn't as competitive in the sense where there was a lot of pressure, a lot of judgment.
Hmm.
I feel like that was felt a lot in high school.
And to add on this point, I've heard anecdotally of, I guess, like a very competitive environment causing students, especially I think in high school, like certain high schools in the Bay, to be quite not willing to help others because, that helping gives someone else a perceived edge. Versus when college, there's maybe not as much of that because sort of like the grades don't matter as much. Is that true? Or in college too, is it like very, very individualistic sort of zero sum game?
The funny thing is, it's like the more competitive it is, the more zero sum it seems to be. But
Hmm.
the more, I'd say, balanced, I think that's a better word. Everyone's
Hmm.
very collaborative. Everyone's very supportive. Actually, help each other more even more.
Hmm.
So I think that's another interesting thing that I've noticed, at least from my experience. Everyone's very collaborative. For example, let's just say I was late to a lecture because for whatever
Hmm.
reason, that traffic, parking, whatever it may be. I asked my classmate, "Hey, by the way, do you have the first 20 minutes of lecture notes that I could, review or look over?" He's like, "Yeah, no problem." So I think it very culturally depends on the school. I think as you get more competitive, just I think societal factors, environmental factors, environmental pressures, like, oh, you really want to get that specific job or funding or whatever it may be, people get more competitive. But my experience, everyone's very supportive. And I think that's another interesting point I wanted to take on, especially with AI. I think people are kind of on the edge of like, hey, is AI zero sum in a way where it's going to take away jobs or is it going to unlock more capability? I'm on, obviously, I'm more biased towards the side of it's going to create more capability because I understand that AI is only automating tasks. It's not automating jobs. Matter of fact, it unlocks new capabilities, which unlocks new problems to solve and new capabilities that you can focus on and creates a labor shortage in a way. I think Jeff Bezos talks about this. He is biased in a way because, does have a lot of tech companies. And again, this is my personal opinion, but I like to reason from and I like to
Hmm.
put my opinion based around some facts. And whenever people would like to discuss, debate, I love having that conversation. But yeah, that's kind of like a caveat I wanted to add.
From LA, you now got some of these degrees and computer science, data science related fields, and then you moved back up to the Bay Area, right? And I know you spend a lot of time in San Francisco, South Bay, Stanford, going to basically like all of these tech conferences, any Y Combinator event, any AI research event going on. Could you just tell us about some of this AI culture in SF and just what you've experienced and what you've learned, who you've met through all of these events?
You meet people who want to change the world, people who want to build, you go to different hackathons, especially in San Francisco. It attracts the best of the best. And I used to take this for granted just because there's a huge density of hackathons, technical events, and a lot of events hosted by uh, AI companies. And I didn't really appreciate how much value there is until I started going outside of San Francisco, especially the Bay Area, to really appreciate that. And the amount of people that I've found that they're flying across the world for a week, for a day, they raise $30 million. They're doing this. They have a bunch of customers. Some 16-year-old just made $10 million a month. Just some crazy things. Just solving cancer, building robots for this. It's every single event, every single day. It's you feel the energy, you feel energized, you feel motivated, and the moment that's actually good. It motivates you because once you feel like you tried your best, you meet these people like, wow, I can try even harder. I can do even better. And it really pushes you. It's really motivating. At least for me, it is. But it can be exhausting. And it can be borderline can burn you out. It really depends on your outlook on stuff. So I'd say San Francisco right now in 2026, if you really want to go somewhere that's high energy, where people are really building the world, or want to change the world in a positive manner and are constantly grinding and building, you want to be inspired, is the place to be right now. No other place in the world. I know other places try to mimic Silicon Valley, San Francisco. I know I've heard of other cities, but I think it's a cross section of academia from UC Berkeley, Stanford, original Silicon Valley, plus Intel, that culture of innovation. So you have the South Bay, San Francisco, the concoction right there, plus the American dream, plus a whole bunch of other factors that are beyond what I can explain. It just works. And that's where all VC capital, all engineers, builders, even if you're not an engineer, now with AI, you don't need to know how to code initially, but you can use AI as you build your product to become and think like an engineer or a problem solver from first principles. Because at the end of the day, an engineer is just solving a problem. You're just removing the syntax now of Python or JavaScript or Rust, and you're using English as your language of choice instead of JavaScript or whatever it may be. But yeah, phenomenal place, met phenomenal people, people that inspire me. Where I start to fangirl over, I'm like, oh my god, it's the CEO of this. I like to nerd out now, you know. So yeah, I love it, and very fortunate to be born in the Bay Area, and very fortunate to be in this time of life where AI is like unlocking so much capability. I can't. I mean, I have to force myself to sleep because I'm super excited to build all these cool things.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a very good analysis of the Bay Area and its dominance in tech. I wanted to ask actually, so you were talking about San Francisco, and you grew up in Saratoga in the peninsula on the South Bay. How much different is it in San Francisco than it is in the rest of the Bay Area, like maybe San Jose, Mountain View, Palo Alto?
Yeah, I like that question. It's very niche. San Francisco, I would say it's the place where everyone across the world would go to. But then obviously, if you grew up in the Bay, obviously just South Bay, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Saratoga, Cupertino, Fremont, San Jose. I'd say that's more like traditional hardware, more traditional fame. And like you tend to be more have a family, you're more established, you're higher level. And if you are young, then you would just commute. And I usually hear that you just go to San Francisco if you're a new grad. But San Francisco is like where all the startups, all the latest ones. Uh, there is an attraction of so many people there that you're going to meet people from across the world, from Asia, Europe, Africa, the smartest, the brightest minds. Even, even literally, I literally just walked into a coffee shop one time. I think like everyone's working on like a startup or a pitch deck or something. I remember one of my friends, she said she walked into a random cafe in North Beach and there's Jan LeCun just like chilling and talking about world models or something. So I was like, it's crazy. So, and then my other friend, he's like, oh, you went to the gym, and then like the CEO of Airbnb, billionaire, just doing like lap pull downs. It's like what? Just casually. I was like, all right. And then Dorkesh Patel just chilling. Just like I was like, all right. So really phenomenal place. I think San Francisco is very unique in a way where other cities, people would like to measure their status usually through designer things. For example, maybe a car, or designer clothes. I know like cities like Miami, New York, or LA, wherever it may be. But at least in San Francisco, it's very like, hey, don't care about design, don't care about any of that. They care about, hey, what are you building? How are you changing the world? Are you changing the world? No, all right, I don't care. It's very pragmatic. I mean, like literally the first thing people will say is, like, hey, what are you building? That's the first, you go to any party, you go to any event, what are you building? What are you building? And in a way that it's kind of toxic in a way, but that's kind of it's good insight into seeing it. I like to think that everything, there are positives and negatives to everything in life. It just depends on what you want to value more. Again, if you're a builder, you want to change the world, no better place than SF. I mean, yeah, there's like New York and there's other cities, but I'd say if you really want to maximize your surface area for luck and opportunity, San Francisco, hands down. If you want to chill, if you want to have a balanced life, emphasis on the balanced. What I mean by balance, I define it as work-life balance. Then I would probably like stay within the South Bay in a way. But there is another caveat. The only reason I say that is because there's the intensity of San Francisco. And then within that intensity of San Francisco, there's two types of San Franciscos. It's people in tech and people not and just living there. But unfortunately, as we see as total comps rise and rise, it does make it more expensive, and there is a disparity, economic disparity that needs to be addressed on a city level, on a governmental level, and I think we're seeing that with the current mayor Daniel Leary. He's doing a phenomenal job of really reviving the city. A lot of people are giving flack on SF for being like, oh, there's a lot of homeless people. There's a lot of crime. Well, crime is down. Murders are down. There's so many events. SF is back. I go on Instagram story. It's like, wait, looks like New York. I was like, it's kind of fun. It's improved. I wouldn't say it's super clean, but it's a lot cleaner than it was during COVID. And I would highly encourage everyone to go back to visit that because I know SF had its ups and downs. It was really down during COVID, but current administration is doing a phenomenal job. Crime that's clean, safer, lots of opportunity, and Bay Area. I was talking to a researcher at a startup, and he said, "Yeah, all the real engineers are in the South Bay, and then all like the vibe coders are in that." I mean, yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about. There are a lot of like startups are hot right now, so there's a lot of attraction of not the best, not best of the best quality. But yeah, just like anything else.
I'm curious for you. So we're all in our 20s right now, and I feel like in your 20s, these pretty much two sides you can go down. It's like, oh, let me try to have fun, right? And live in New York or LA and party and have a more balanced life. Or do I go to SF and like try to make it big? And then later on, you can have a more like balanced life. What is your take on all of the people right now that are just living in, I guess, LA or New York or and making that trade off versus like the path you're going down?
I would say, what regrets would you have 5, 10, 20, 40 years from now? And then I would just backtrack from there. And you would just create a checklist. And then from that, you would decide from your own criteria that's rooted in the objectivity that you can verify. Hey, out of all these 20 things, it turns out I would regret it if I didn't go all in now versus, or maybe, out of all these 20 things, I'd actually regret it if I worked really hard now and I just live a chill life. There's no wrong answer. It really depends on the situation. I mean, everything it depends, but that's how I like to give frameworks. I don't like to give blanket advice. Anyone try to give you blanket advice is a scammer, bro. So, what do you care about? What do you value? From first principles, reverse engineer that, and you identify exactly, hey, you know what? Maybe the startup life isn't for me. It isn't for everyone. And I actually recommend people not start a startup.
Interesting. Could you go into that a little bit more of what you said about the startup? Why do you recommend most people don't start it? Do you think anyone can start it, or there's only a certain type of personality?
There's a quote from Jensen Huang that really stuck with me. He talks about pain and suffering as starting a company. And I really resonate with that because it truly is a test of endurance, pain, and suffering. I know all the attributes. Elon Musk talks about it. Building a starting company is like trying to assemble a parachute when you jump out of an airplane or something. Uh, and there's similar types of quotes from other CEOs. And I could really relate to that because it truly is, there's so much that goes into it that you're not aware of, but it's because of you're unaware that you power through it, and that's why it works. Only if you don't give up, and you have to endure that. And there's so many unknown things you don't know about, and you just gotta persist. And you really have to have a true reason why you want to pursue it. Because if you kind of want to start a company, don't do it. It's not worth it. If you have to ask yourself, I want to find a startup idea, don't do it. You shouldn't have to find a startup idea. You should just, hey, this is a problem. You feel that emotion, like I want to solve it. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how difficult it is. I don't care if I don't know anything. I'm gonna figure it out. And that's how you know if you want to start a company or not. If it's anything less than that, do not do it. It's not worth it. There's a lot of pain, like I said. I mean, if I were to keep a tally of how many things that went wrong, I would be very wealthy already. And that's a testament for that. Like I'm gonna tell you this, like this isn't my first startup. This isn't my first attempt to create a company. I'm still in the middle of it. Like I wouldn't even say myself successful, but I'm seeing the fruits of my labor slowly come. Like I'm still in it. So, but I would leave it at that. It's not all glitz and glamour. I know it's very trendy right now. Everyone wants to be your own boss. I mean, you're not your own boss. You're servicing your employees. You're servicing your customers. You're solving problems. You are more employed now. You're working 24/7, 7 days a week. Let me give you an example. I literally work every single day. The moment I wake up, the moment I sleep. Sometimes I fall asleep on my laptop. I'm always thinking. I'm always worried. I'm always thinking about, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, a resource for this, I need to do that. Oh, what about this? There's a bug. Oh, someone else came out with this. Like it's a constant battle. And I also want to add another caveat. I'd say building a company, especially now, is the ultimate form of self-improvement. You really know who you are, who you're not. And for example, when I first started startups, looking back, I was like, wow, I was so naive. I thought like, oh yeah, you can vibe code something, just sell it, it's super easy, bro. In a way, I really appreciate it. Me personally, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love what I'm doing right now, but I like to give that perspective that hey, it's not all glitz and glamour. I want to give a very pragmatic, dynamic take that's fully comprehensive. I have my personal reasons, and I'm willing to stick through it. I love it, no matter despite all the hardships. I love it. I want to leave it at that point. But not everyone has the same reasons or same motivations or same amount of conviction as I would. But yeah, really depends on what you care about, something you really want to solve, and yeah, leave it at that.
So, William, on this topic, could you tell us and the viewers what your startup Touchdown Labs does?
My company, Touchdown Labs, we're focused on full stack business transformations through infrastructure. What does that mean? That means, hey, your company, you heard AI is really good. Oh, let me spend $100,000 to pay OpenAI. I'll get my dev team to kind of build a RAG chat bot or agent framework. Oh, but it doesn't really work. It's not really useful. I can't justify the $100,000 I'm spending to OpenAI or Anthropic, justify the business value. I come in, I take analysis of your entire stack of your business. Hey, what's the expected outcome and value that you want to see a return? What is the capability of AI? I architected around that. How does your company work? How does your team work? Do I need to teach them? Do I need to upskill them? How do I design it that fits with your system? What's your budget? Oh, maybe you will need an API. Maybe you need self-hosting. If you were to self-host NVIDIA or AMD, VLM or SG-Lane, Kimi 2.5, Qwen 3.6, GLM 5.2, what do you need? Maybe NVFP4, maybe you need KV cache offloading. I help you with that. Maybe you need Edge, self-hosting data center and API, whatever it is. I tell you what you need. I do it for you. I teach your team, bring that bill from 100K to 50K. And long term, we're going to do hardware, software, co-design. That's exactly why I'm in Taiwan at the moment right now. I came for Computex, and next week I have Taiwan AI Expo where I have a booth, and hopefully I get to build partnerships with a lot of the semiconductor community out here. So long term, we co-design custom specific ASIC hardware for specific workloads. So let's just say 10 at 100K into maybe 10K, maybe even less. My goal is to minimize the amount of cost there is to compute because I believe compute unlocks so much capability, it can cure cancer. Because all current infrastructure and inference, all these RL experiments, RL is turning more inference bound. Possibilities are endless, and I'm really bullish on that. There's so much optimization. It's extremely difficult, especially with the compilers and hardware aware. And that's why I really get motivated because I started off in the application layer. I was doing a lot of consumer ideas, but then I knew deep down I really wanted to create something that was foundational. I could support other people who had whatever problems they wanted to solve. I could democratize it. And I felt like, hey, you know what? I stumbled upon infrastructure. I stumbled upon GPUs, and I was like, yo, this is the idea. This is it. This is the foundational thing. That's the bottleneck because it's super expensive. I mean, like we all pay like $200 for Quad Max or Codex, and we all hit rate limits. But even then, Anthropic and OpenAI, they're subsidized. What happens when they stop subsidizing it? And Semi-Analysis did a simulation effort. I think, don't quote me on this, it's something around $8,000 of API credits for Anthropic, and 10,000 for OpenAI for the Codex Max plan. Again, don't quote me on those numbers. It's really late at night in Taiwan, so but it was like a really crazy number. I'll leave it at that. But that kind of goes to show, like, hey, there's so much more to optimize. Imagine if we were able to bring down compute costs to like cents on the dollar. Imagine how much more capability a business would have. Maybe how much more capability would scientists have when they're searching for a cure for cancer? That's what motivates me. We're literally in the new age of computing. Jensen says it the best. I think one thing that really invigorated me even more about, wow, that I made the right decision was at Computex this year. A few weeks ago in Taipei, I walked around. Jensen says AI factory. I'm like, It's an AI factory. It's just a data center, bro. It's just like some Blackwells, GB200s, Vera Rubins. But then I just walked around the entire supply chain, everything that's involved, the silicon photonics, the optical interconnects, all these different components, cooling. And then I was like, oh my God, it just hit me. I was like, I get it. You're inputting raw inputs of physics, electricity, water, code, and out comes business value. Out comes real solutions. It is literally generating like answers to the world. Like it's crazy. As you can see, I get super excited. It's like anything you could ever possibly want to progress society or solve any problem or whatever it may be. You just put more inputs in there. You can optimize it more. You can get more outputs. It's like a magic box. So now I'll spend the rest of my life doing this. I already am. I'm all in, and yeah.
I just have one quick question. So for the viewers, assuming a viewer has no idea, right, what any of these technical terms mean, can you just give a layman's definition of what is model training? There's a model training phase and then the inference phase after that. Could you just explain what that even is, like in a simple way? And if I'm understanding correctly, you're saving money on the inference phase of this, right?
Correct,
Yeah, could you explain to someone that doesn't have all this
yeah,
technical
of
knowledge?
course. Yeah, so let's say Google, OpenAI, or Anthropic. I need to train ChatGPT or Fable 5 or Opus. I need to train this model on all these GPUs. It's usually like hundreds of thousands or a huge cluster, huge node, and that takes a lot of time. But then on the other side, it's like, hey, now that we finally have these models, we want to give it to users. That part is called inference. So when I use ChatGPT, when you use ChatGPT, when you use Cloud Code, every time you say, hey, build me this app, that is inference, the response of that running on their GPUs. So as we all know, it's very expensive to pay Anthropic and OpenAI. So people are like, hey, all these open source models are pretty good. It's like 89% there. And then if you do more pre-training or post-training on it, you can get the same parity as OpenAI or Anthropic at like a fraction of the cost, 89% off. Oh, but the caveat is I need to host these on the GPUs. Oh, there's a H100, there's a H200, there's a B200, there's a GB200. So there's Hopper, Blackwell. These are all under NVIDIA. And the next generation is something called Vera Rubin. And then there's AMD. They have the MI300 series, so 325X, 355X, and that's using specific ISAs or instruction sets. I can get more detail, but I don't want to confuse everyone. And then there's a next generation, so MI400s and onward. So those are just the two biggest names at the moment, but I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of TPUs and Cerebras and Grok, GROQ, not GROK from Elon. And then NVIDIA acquired Grok. Now it gets really complicated. Like, oh, why there's so many? It's so confusing. Oh, because GPUs were created in a time where AI didn't exist, but they were created for a general purpose. And then once Google realized at the time, like, hey, I think we would really benefit if we had a specific hardware or ASIC that could do computations, only focus on inference, and they didn't really care about pre-training or whatever, or graphics or video games. So that's where the TPU came about. And Cerebras is also a rendition of that in their own, using the wafer scale. Really crack team, really smart, really intelligent. And there's so many different hardware approaches to do that. And I can go to list out every single different approach in every single company, but that's going to confuse everyone. But yeah, that's the general landscape of inference and hardware.
So this is like really fascinating. I'm really curious about this space. First off, like you said, like you were reviewing customer business requirements for how to service these chips, right, at scale. What size businesses are y'all working with? If you could give us more color on that. Are these like really big companies? Because I presume that if they're running like $100,000 AI inference bills per month, they must be pretty reasonably sized.
So I wouldn't classify it as customers right now. We're in like a research preview at the moment, but we are currently in talks and doing design at the moment. I purposely haven't opened up official customer list just because we want to make sure everything is perfect and make sure everything's attention to detail. But we tend to focus only on obviously bigger companies with a lot of AI spend, mainly because that usually justifies, hey, maybe it's time to migrate off APIs and get into self-hosting. That's when it tends to make the most sense. But we do optimizations for if you're doing API only or you want to do hybrid or self-hosting. But yeah, to your point, usually around 100,000 or even more, 500, even a million or a million plus. That's when you would start taking a look at how can I optimize inference, because that is the highest leverage thing to really get your margins back, actually. And there are phenomenal people in the field at the moment. There's standard kernel. They just focus on specific kernels. Modular by Chris Ladner. Chris Ladner's phenomenal engineer. He created the compiler LLVM, and now he's automating, trying to make it portable for AMD, Apple, and NVIDIA, which is phenomenal from the ground up. I met him a few times. I'm a big fanboy of him. I love what he does. There's spectral compute. They do the CUDA portability for AMD hardware. Again, phenomenal. They're based out of London. And there's Macora and there's EigenAI. They got acquired by Navius. Again, they have a phenomenal engineering team. They're actually building a, I believe, 500 megawatt data center for GB300s in Taiwan. Really cool stuff. Everyone's scaling really fast. And yeah, I think that also goes to your point with all these data centers and compute needs. That's why there's like a huge push for space data centers as well as underwater data centers. Just because there's an immense demand for this compute, and obviously the rate of building it is confined based on resources and time and other factors. So that's where optimizations are really needed.
So is Touchdown Labs then? I mean, I guess the labs name indicates like a high degree of research, which you alluded to earlier. Like, are y'all like a software company, or are y'all actually like a hardware like? So because you mentioned earlier that you wanted to like co-design chips with clients, right? Which I guess is sort of the role of people like big companies like Broadcom or Marvell in designing like application specific GPUs, like the TPU. Like, are y'all like a hybrid of that, or are y'all like pure software or like services?
I like that question. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. So I like to classify us as a full stack infrastructure company. So we do inference optimization research, KV cache, so that's software side. But the end
Okay.
goal is to collect the telemetry based on specific workloads that we can classify and co-design truly optimized hardware and a fast feedback loop. Hopefully, we can design and manufacture in the United States as well. That is the long-term
Hmm.
goal. But obviously, very ambitious, very hard, and also working on other stuff I'm not sure if I could talk about right now, but that's kind of like the grand vision. But in terms of today actionable items, it's more of we work with the client, understand their workflow, their business, how much they're spending with AI. We help optimize it, whether it's APIs or coding agents or self-hosting or hybrid, writing the specific kernels, generating those kernels, or VLM configurations, KV cache offloading, things like that, quantization. We do continuous research. One of our upcoming services will be research as a service. So, for example, the reason this comes out is companies tend to be very stagnant with their product lines, especially the AI product lines. But and usually, like if you want to hire the best talent to do continuous research and update your product, it's very expensive, very timely, and it's not in line with your business model because you don't care about research. But if you really want to not just survive but thrive in this AI native world, you kind of have to. I mean, how many times has the company, oh, we spent 6 months building this chatbot or this agent, and OpenClaw or Hermes just kind of like, all right, it's better over. I mean, we've heard of many stories of that. So why don't we provide, hey, if we optimize inference on these GPUs, we're a lot of experiments, whatever needs that your company needs, we have the expertise, we have the know-how, we can continue that for you. Once we find something that's uh, really good for you, hey, you have a new product. So hence the term research as a service concept. So yes, alluding to your question, there is a mixture of services, but that services turn into a managed platform because there's data and telemetry. It's going to be very hands-on right now, but obviously that feeds us into an automated platform that we can truly automate. But yeah, right now it's semi-automated on our internally. There's a lot of internal tooling, but yeah, still have to be the know-how on that. And end goal, managed platform software, and not even longer goal, hardware software co-design. So yes, everything in a way. ups.
Love the vision here. Yeah, you present a very compelling story on like how Touchdown Labs, I guess, evolves from a labs to a very like serviceable end product. So I wanted to ask a more general question here. So I think, there's been a lot of like talk, I'm sure you're aware of Anthropic just with their Claude Code offering and now Cowork and OpenAI Codex, OpenClaw, like how this is really going to kind of just absorb and displace all knowledge workers. Like I know earlier you mentioned that there were still you thought there were going to be more jobs created. So I guess like my first question here is, do you think it's like to do a startup these days, is it a lot harder than it was, let's say, 10 years ago when you didn't have like these open AIs and Anthropics who could really automate away a lot of knowledge work? Or do you think it's easier?
Just like all my answers, it depends. But I'll give more context. So, yes, it's easier to build a startup in the sense of technically validating something quick and validating it. But I think the mistake that people fall into is that that's where they stop. Hence, that's why I alluded to company products are static. That's why they need a continuous research and feedback loop to continually evolve and adapt based on the market. Because just as how fast it is to build it, it is easily as fast to replace it. So you need to have the continuous loop. And that's why I bring, hey, research as a service, where, hey, you may not have the know-how or the infra, but we can discover that. And in a way, it is harder because model labs are creating, like, for example, I can edit photos on ChatGPT. I didn't even know that. I was just like, oh, I just uploaded a photo. I was like, oh, I didn't know my app even updated. It's like, oh, you can edit stuff now? Like, I just discovered features I didn't know. But I know like a few months ago, there was a bunch of startups that raised millions of dollars to, AI editing photos. So that is very possible. But I think in the future, and to be a really successful business, I believe there's actually more opportunity because now you need to think from first principles. It is just as easy to build as for me as my competitor, but now it's democratized me building. So what does that mean? That means I can stack different value propositions that I know people would pay for. Because what is if you break down what is a company? A company is an entity you're willing to pay money for to solve a specific problem. Either you don't want to do it yourself or you don't know how to do it. That's the whole point of the company. So would you argue that we're going to magically not have problems anymore that we would pay people to solve? I mean, I feel like there's plenty of problems I would pay people to solve that I don't want to build necessarily. So if we're understand the company from that perspective, think from an organizational perspective, look at a legal firm, look at a biotech firm, look at any other company, any other industry. If you're not constantly evolving, which you should be, there's actually limitless opportunities. And I think you have to stack orthogonal value. For example, for Touchdown Labs, we're doing upskilling of engineering, also researchers and students. And actually, I want to expand upon my bigger vision for Touchdown Labs. I want Touchdown Labs to be foundational for democratizing STEM research. For example, you look at traditional academia, you have to fight for a budget, but your research is, very impactful. If you're in the top lab, you have all the money in the world that's funded by like ads or maybe shareholder value, misaligned incentives. So you can't work on like the most positively impactful research. You have plenty of capital to deploy. However, what if you had an incentive structure that's positive enforcing, where you have cutting edge research that is powered by infrastructure that benefits the world, and then you could turn that as a product, as for any company, sell as a additional profit, and I would fund additional research, expand beyond that. But and that research is specifically for any type of STEM, so engineering, math, physics, biology, chemistry. That's really the frontier I want to push, especially with infrastructure. That's my long-term goal, and that's the reason why is because after going to Cal State LA, the CSU LA, I just like looked around. There's so many smart, hardworking people, but they've never heard of Cursor or Claude Code before. And this was like not even that long ago. I was like, but I go to San Francisco quite often, and it's like, it's a completely different world. And it's because they don't have access and it's under resourced. And I think Anthony knows it too, where STEM was really hard for me. And it's something that I
Mhm.
find personally, like my whole life is STEM now. And I feel like it should be as accessible as possible because that's the next generation. I feel like United States STEM isn't cool for whatever reason. But if you go to like China, it's like, all right, everyone's like STEM oriented. But I feel like you can make learning fun. I think alluding back to like high school, like, hey, growing up, like I literally did not understand geometry because of the way it was taught and structured. But with AI, I'm literally staying up on Friday and Saturday nights, 16 hours straight, just learning about physics, learning about material science, chip design, just like going deep dive, like coding things. It's fun now because I'm sensing progress and I'm getting that feedback loop that's really motivating. And I know I went off on a tangent. Oh yeah, that's kind of like the motivation for infrastructure to democratize that for research and hopefully positively benefit the world.
So on that note, I'm curious about more of the future. So William, what is your predictions on how all of this AI is going to evolve over the next 5-10 years and how it'll impact society? I know there's a lot of fear, right, among young people in our generation, especially about like losing their jobs, for example. But on the other side, right, you could make the argument that if we do really reach a super intelligence, that could solve a lot of the world's toughest problems potentially, right? Like cancer or just any of these problems right now that are unsolved. So are you overall on like the optimist side of all of this or the pessimist side? And yeah, what's your take on that?
I'm glad you asked. I would like to preface this by saying, in times of uncertainty, what is the most courageous option? And just do that. Because in times of uncertainty, nobody knows what's going on. No, even people at the top labs, they're very uncertain of the future. I'm uncertain of the future, but I'm very optimistic. I believe if you consistently work on improving whatever you care about, working towards a specific goal, despite whatever noise there is. However, you're being socially aware enough of understanding the current trajectory of how AI is doing, the economy, jobs, and things like that. You figure out that specific pattern, you're going to excel no matter what. There's going to be no shortage of problems to solve in the future. I think we can all agree with that. Although the definitions of those problems are going to be different, the current way of doing things in jobs and tasks, obviously it's going to be very different. And if you say those jobs are going to be automated, of course, tasks will be automated, jobs will transform. But there's still going to be a need for you to understand how to use those tools to solve even more problems. And will money kind of disappear and reduce in value? I actually think so. Yeah, because I could be wrong, but my understanding is the reason why everything costs money, there's scarcity in terms of production, for example, food, shelter, transportation. However, if we do enough innovation, optimizations, we'll bring those costs down through robotics, AI, etc. Same with medicine. And I think we're going to have a state where the average quality of life will actually be very, very pleasant. I wanted to say super high quality. Again, this is my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong. But based on my understanding, the trajectory, and also balancing pragmatic, negative, and also optimistic outlooks, I think that's the most probable timeline. Jobs will evolve. There'll be a lot of small and medium companies. I wouldn't say large companies because there's going to be so many different types of niche problems to solve. And I think small, medium-sized businesses will flourish. They'll actually explode. And everyone will kind of live in like a life that they truly want to live. Because I'd say right now we're living in a world where we kind of can do what we want, but we still have to go to work. Things are kind of expensive still. Real estate, things like regarding that, there's still scarcity. But I do believe we can choose the life we want to live, and we can live that and not worry about the basics. But I'm not saying it's going to be utopia. There's obviously going to be a lot of problems. There's going to be new problems, but I think we don't have to worry about surviving. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think we're going to be worrying about other types of problems like what is the meaning of life and debate other things. But I don't think people will be starving. I don't think people will be worrying about dying from cancers and things like that. That allows us to worry about other things. And that may be even worse. I don't know. But I'm pretty positive on it. I mean, look at history. Every time of life, every era of human existence, everyone's like, oh, this is the end of the world, end of this, end of that. What's the reality? We've all been fine.
So William, I have a question to ask you. So what advice do you have for some kid out there right now in middle school or high school who's overwhelmed from all of these superpower AI tools, like what should they be focusing on for learning and how should they be utilizing this to actually help prepare themselves for the world?
My advice, number one, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. Number two, I wish I were you right now. Number three, you'll be more successful than me, guaranteed. Because now you're starting in middle school or high school. So in terms of how to effectively learn AI, first break down what are you trying to learn? What's your goal? And then use AI to say, hey, it's faster to build something, so let me build something. Let me do something. But let me ask a questions on why. First principles thinking. What's first principles thinking? It's that most fundamental absolute truth on why that certain action is. Breaking it down, problem solving. So, for example, I want to learn how a GPU works. Okay, what is the GPU? What problems does it solve? Who created the GPU? Why does it exist? Can you explain what components make up a GPU? Why do they exist? What do they look like? Now you're kind of seeing I'm breaking down all these like basic questions, but they all add up to more context. I create a mental model. So whatever you're trying to do, just keep asking those questions. What, why now? Who else does it? When? What problems does it solve? Who uses it? Why did they use it? Why don't they use it the other way? What are the other considerations? And you just go kind of go down a spiral because you're naturally curious. So if you're naturally curious, you can't not learn anything. And that compounds over time. Because now you're middle school, high school, you have all the time in the world. You don't gotta pay bills. You don't gotta have a job. You don't have to worry about driving to work. You don't gotta pay taxes. Like you live in life, bro. You literally get to learn in school. Hey, it may not be the most effective, but hey, you can after class just go pull up ChatGPT. I wish I could do this. Just hey, what is geometry? I don't know. And then it's like then you can pull up Claude Code and start building something and then coding something. You can make some money. You can run a business while you're in school. By the time you graduate, you're multimillionaire, multi-billionaire, whatever it may be. So now is a great time. Just really understand what you want to learn. Actually, don't even do that. I'd say explore as many things as you can right now and try to build as much cool stuff, learn as much cool stuff. And then once you'll know at a certain age that hey yo this is the thing I want to do. For me, I started building consumer apps. I started from web development, bro. I did coding boot camp. I think Anthony could attest to this. I called him the day I learned CSS and HTML. Like this is 2019. I was like, bro, I just learned CSS, bro. Like it was so hard. I was like, this is before AI. I was like, dude, now looking back, it's like, bro, what so times have changed. I wish I was you guys. Like, I wish I had a time machine and then went back. And you guys are literally, I'm jealous of you guys. Like, I'm seeing so many cool young people ambitious are building stuff. 16-year-olds selling $60 million apps that are being acquired by companies. So the world is your oyster. Get hungry. You'll know what you really want to spend the rest of your life on, and yeah, solve problems. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think we're coming close to the end. So, William, I want to ask you one final question, but a very meaningful question. And that is, what advice would you give for aspiring startup founders?
If you're gonna start a company, be very good at learning how to unlearn very fast. Like if you have a preconceived notion that you grow up your entire life believing, but then you're presented with facts that prove otherwise, that hey, this is not the way to go. Instantaneously, just that's your new belief system. And being able to do that quickly and fast feedback loops. That's the most important thing. Like whatever it could be internal, personal, professional, it doesn't matter. Learning how to unlearn fast.
I just wanted to add on that. That's very interesting because I think like a lot of people they do fall into the sunken cost fallacy. And is what you're saying that if you were to, let's say, not unlearn things fast and maybe be more stubborn in your perspectives, would a sunken cost fallacy be really detrimental in a startup atmosphere?
I think in now current startup culture, yes, because of AI, because it matters even more now. I think before, let's say it was before AI, I'd say it matters less because whatever past experience you had actually mattered. But now it's like, dude, sometimes the newer way is better. And it's like whatever the logo is, just irrelevant. And that's coming from someone that started coding before AI, that struggled. I only give that piece of advice because I've spent hours, weeks, months, even years of my life on certain beliefs for that. That's why that's my one piece of advice. Like, I would get back so much time if someone told me that. Like, trust me, that's the one thing I wish people would know. Yeah, so you guys are living the best time.
William, where would be a good place for either aspiring founders, current students, or potential customers for your business? Do you have some handles that they can reach you at for all of this information?
Yeah, I'll probably link it in the bio, give it to you guys, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's William Chen. And then my email is william@touchdown-labs.com. And then you can also visit the website, touchdown-labs.com. I highly, highly encourage you to read the technical blogs because it takes me a lot of time to write those. I put a lot of time and effort into that. So it would mean the world to me if you guys read those. And
All right, I think that's it for this episode. So, yeah, thank you so much, William, for coming on. This
Thank
was a
you.
great conversation. And yeah, for all the viewers, we'll see you next time.
thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.